Hello and welcome to the call. This is CEO Andy Morbitzer, Atlas Forge. Today's training, we're going to talk about silver and all things electronic. Last month, we covered strategic metals. It was Strategic Metals Month, and I figured what better segue than to introduce silver. In my opinion, it's a strategic metal as well because all things electronic use silver and every piece of equipment known to man. So we had a great turnout and a great month of strategic metals. We talked about their vital and necessity in the future moving forward with the Internet of Things. So we had a great month of strategic metals. So with that, let's get started with silver, all things electronic. Okay, silver, all things electronic. Silver is the white metal that has an illustrious reputation for its use in jewelry and coins, but today silver's primary use is industrial. Whether it's in cell phones, solar panels, drones, the Internet of Things, 5G, really silver is used in everything electronic. And they're constantly emerging and taking advantage of silver's unique properties. Understand there's some unique things about silver is really that all these devices, especially cell phones, people don't recycle them. So silver is an industrial metal, even though it's been used as a monetary vehicle since biblical times. It's been bartered and stamped and multiple times by multiple emperors and conquerors of the day, going back thousands of years. So what makes silver really unique is it's a consumable, but yes, it's a precious metal, meaning it's a great store of value, it's a great hedge. But on the other side, if it's a consumable, meaning it's recycled every month, used, and then displaced, understand there's only so much of any strategic metal or any precious metal on the earth. So limited supply is always great. And as of late, here, 21st century, we have a very bad history of recycling. We seem to tear things up and ruin environments and ecosystems, and it's having a great damage on our earth and our future. So we really need to be engaged in doing a better job of recycling these precious and strategic metals to save Mother Earth, for lack of better things. But from an investment standpoint, anytime you have a high demand and something that's consumable that's not being recycled, you have a great recipe of a great appreciable position. And as I look back throughout history, I've always seen that many countries around the world, including the United States, 3 times in the last 100 years, when you compare silver to gold, silver is usually not in the crosshair of any geopolitical movement or government or seizure like gold. Gold's been seized throughout humanity, countless times. The point is, silver is not in the crosshairs where gold is. Gold has always been that commodity that they used to seize. And really, the last major seizure of gold was in 1971 when President, I believe, Nixon took us off the gold standard. In essence, that was turning our money into currency because at that point, our money was no longer backed by anything. So another advantage of jewelry and silver is jewelry has no tax. You've always heard of crown jewels, and same thing with diamonds and the like. Anything that makes up jewelry is typically not taxable. There is no capital gains on a ring or a bracelet or a necklace. So it's huge as far as an investment and a hedge. And when you compare it against gold, next week I'm going to do the breakdown of gold to silver ratio, how to buy gold and silver, what kind of gold and silver to buy, because there's a big difference between a government issued currency and a bullion of gold or silver. And then, of course, I'm going to show you a secret that I've been using the strategy for well over a decade, how to buy gold, when to buy gold, but when do you sell your gold to accumulate more silver, or vice versa? When do you sell your silver to accumulate more gold? We're going to get into supply and demand, and it's a technique that like I said, I've used over a decade that increased my return on gold and silver up to 500%. And you look at the crashes in the last 20 years, you can quantify and document this strategy. And we'll get into that next week. Next week's all about should I buy gold or silver, and what should I buy, gold or silver? And I'm going to definitely recommend silver, and I'll prove to you why that it's the best value on the planet right now. So everything's silver. Silver is a precious metal because it's rare and valuable. But also what makes it so unique, and everything from airplanes to engines to Microchips is its ability to resist corrosion and oxidation, whereas gold and other metals don't have the same properties. It's the best thermal and electrical conductor of all metals. So that sets it apart. It's used in industry, and half of silver, half of the supply goes to the industrial market, and it's used and not recycled. So it's a consumable with very high demand. So it's an ideal for any kind of electronic application, whether it be drones, smartphones, robotics. I've also seen it used in antimicrobial in the medical field, if you will. You've always heard of the old silverware that was made of silver. Well, there was a reason why it was made of silver. Antimicrobial is huge for cleansing the body and killing different bacterias and things in your body. Now, just a little bit goes a long way, and we won't get into all that, but it has medical uses, just like gold. I just read a book where they have the ability now with gold to have it attached to cancer cells in the body, and then through a laser, they can expand the gold, and it kills the cancerous cell without damaging any other cells in the body. So the uses for precious metals are very useful in medicine, consumer products. Its high luster and reflectivity makes it perfect for jewelry, silverware, mirrors. You're starting to see mirrors in a lot of the different skyscrapers around the world over the last decade or two. So malleability, that's nothing more than its ability to be manipulated or flattened, or ductility, which it allows you to stretch it and make it thinner. And the thinner and lighter weight, well, the more value it has, i.e. mobile phones. So it can be made into a thin, flexible wire for, oh gosh, all kinds of industrial applications, from refrigerators to stoves to you name it. Anything that has intelligence, what I call, a mobile phone, a computer, anything that speaks uses silver, and absolutely love silver. Now, don't get me wrong. I still believe precious metals are a hedge. They're an insurable. And these gold and silver, they're insurables because, and I call them shock absorbers, because when something happens in the finance world, in the fiat world, the currency war, the trade wars, it is directly the reciprocal of the stock market. So right now, with the stock market being at an all-time high price to earnings ratio, meaning it's very, very expensive to buy Apple stock, for example, or any of the other, Samsung, Toyota, it really doesn't matter. They're all highly overvalued right now. So what's a way to get into the Internet of Things, get on the train of smartphones and touch screens and computers in the future, and the Internet of Things is why, of course, silver. It's the common denominator of all things electricity or electrical. Because of its thermal and electrical, it can't be replaced. It's one of those metals that, quite honestly, I just finished a book, and I highly recommend that you read it. And the author was, I think it was David S. Abrams, and he wrote a book called The Elements of Power: Gadgets and the Struggle for a Sustainable Future and Rare Metal Age. Because what he talks about is the rarity of strategic metals, precious metals, and there's going to come a point in time in the very near future, because remember, we've got another 3 billion people that are going to come into capitalism, into the middle class. We've got another 3 billion people that'll increase the population by 3 billion over the next 2 decades. So now you're going to look at 10 billion people. And with the introduction of 5G, that's smarter, faster, download speeds, everybody's going to have new cell phones that are all going to have to be new, that are equipped with 5G. This will take several years to roll out, but know that in every one of these circumstances, silver is being used. So think of it this way: the silver that was mined to give us our current cell phones and mobile phones and computers are all going to be ditched and thrown in some recycling mound somewhere in the world. It won't be recycled. So there again, more silver just being wasted because it's not recycled. So demand's going to increase, supply is going to decrease, and we'll get into all those numbers next week, where it was very common to have a ratio of 30-1, meaning as they were mining for gold, they would pick up 30 ounces of silver as well. Now mining output is 9-1, meaning for every ounce of gold, there's only 9 ounces of silver. So supply is on the downward trend. I also see when I study the stock market and I see who and where the big money is going. And being an ex-trader, I can look at the shorts on silver, like JP Morgan Chase has shorted silver for over 6 years because they're trying to dominate the silver market and have a monopoly on silver. And those shorts have decreased and decreased and decreased over the last year. So now I think there'll be a breakout of silver. I don't think JP Morgan Chase, who's the largest bank in the world, will be able to corner the commodities market in silver. So that's good to know that that pressure, that downward trend or suppression of silver value, slowly but surely, because the shorts are the lowest they've been in over 7 years. So that's huge from an investment standpoint, from an insurable standpoint. In my opinion, right now, silver is much, much better than gold. And I'll prove that next week on the Atlas Forge call, gold to silver ratio. Uses of silver in the United States, dominated by electrical and electronics. And then you have some coins and metals. It used to be very prevalent in photography, and now you could probably interchange the coins and the metals, the red there at 25%, with solar power, because you're starting to see all around the world solar power as a clean, green way of building and manufacturing the communication, the technology boom and revolution that's going on right now. So silver has a place in consumer electronics, plasma TVs. Don't think of just silver as, you switch on a light and it's the conduit that makes an LED light. Don't think of it like that at all. Think of it as microchips. And microchips are key because when you add silver with other rare metals, it actually has no resistance whatsoever. That's going to allow 5G to really expand and dominate everything we do. 5G it'll rank right up there with blockchain, cryptocurrency, the steam engine, the agricultural, the big farming equipment, railways, all these technologies that changed and formed a society. Billionaires were made. Same thing's going to happen as these strategic and precious metals are continually reduced and used up. There'll come a point in time where they'll be used geopolitically, that the country that dominates the strategic metals in the precious metal world, precious metal for requirements for monetary dominance around the world, and then silver for industry. And same thing can be said about strategic metals, not only silver. So there'll come a point in time where geopolitically, maybe as a vehicle of war, that strategic metals, precious metals, both gold and silver, are used in such a way that the leaders of the world, or the countries that acquire the most of these silver and gold and strategic metals, they'll be in the catbird seat. They'll be able to name their price because understand, silver, strategic metals, they're all readily used in weaponry, LED, satellites, phones, radar systems, all different types of uses. And there's a shortage. And in a lot of these metals that we talk about, silver, strategic metals, there's assessments that governments list as keys to the future, keys to strategic metals that may change the way the world is really layered right now, for lack of better words, that they know that these metals are very, very valuable for the future because the dominance of these metals will dictate who has the best, fastest technology that can be either used in commerce or used for war. So there's a lot of geopolitics going on now, and Fortune 500 companies starting to see the signs that for them to survive, they're going to have to stockpile strategic and silver, and countries need to stockpile gold. Just like, China and Russia have now the biggest buyers of gold simply because they need to have that gold to back a new currency. Everything is starting to rival the dominance of the US dollar. So on the cutting edge of technology are superconductors, and these superconductors are in everything. For example, microchips are in 7 in each iPhone. No, it's 5, I believe, in each iPhone. When you look into superconductors, when I told you earlier that silver mixed with certain types of strategic metals make electricity even faster, that allows it to think and respond at such critical speeds, that because it has no electronic resistance. Remember, there's two things that slow things down: bandwidth and or electrical resistance. So to get the 5G and to get automated cars and self-driving cars and artificial intelligence and robotics. Things have to happen very quickly, like nanoseconds, to give it the ability to maybe brake to avoid an accident in autonomous driving in cars. So as technology increases, the common denominator is silver. And you can bet in the future, you're already seeing it now, anti-magnetic propulsion, anti-gravitational propulsion. All of these things are based on electronic resistance. And when there is zero resistance, that makes it very easy to use magnetic and anti-gravitational propulsion systems. And that's going to be the future. Have you ever taken two magnets and tried to force them together, one positive, one negative, and you feel that resistance and that it kind of bends around and it doesn't quite go together? That is energy, that's power, and that's what's going to power the future. I've already seen it where they can levitate a car using anti-gravitational propulsion. I mean, interesting stuff. We go to the MIT conventions, we look at all these new gadgets, and it's all great, but we've got to always keep in mind, we have to have a sustainable future. And that to me is supply and demand. So as an investment, boy, I love, love, love silver. Now, as mentioned previously, silver paste is used to make solar panels. And photovoltaic cells capture and carry electrical current. And you're starting to see a lot of this. You're seeing mandates in California that'll be implemented by 2020 that every new home in California that's built is going to spend about $10,000 per home to have this clean energy. It's going to be solar power. And in the future, next 10 years, every major city, every major building, even any vertical plane whatsoever will have a solar panel on it. At some point, we will wean ourselves off of coal and dirty energy. You're starting to see a lot of great companies come out now in cryptocurrency that are mining coins with solar power, green energy. So it's really, really fascinating stuff. That is demand like I've never seen, because you've got to remember, not only are you talking about, California, which is the 8th largest economy in the world, when there's mandates in India and China for electrical vehicles, you see the addiction of smartphones. Can you see where, and the population explosion, the new people coming into capitalization, these critical metals that make the conveniences of our world just go around are going to be in very high demand with very low supply. Couldn't get any better. Oh, and then another thing, I just read where China now has these mega farms where they've taken literally miles of the landscape and they put these solar panels, they're huge. There's thousands and thousands of these, and they've committed to another 200 of these super farms. And I've seen the pictures, and it's just unbelievable how many of these solar panels that just China alone. And when you can perfect that, now we can bring power to the less fortunate, maybe some third world countries where now everybody can have hot water and all those convenience of the 21st century. And silver is critical in that. There's no way around it. And you look at the largest industries in the world, the energy, transportation, communication, they're all on board. They all need strategic metals and silver, of course. So uses of silver and of mirrors and glass. Of course, we've all seen mirrors, and that's been around for a long, long time. But now when you see a new building built, I don't care if it's in Singapore or Dubai, where the cranes never stop and they build these Taj Mahals, they built, every one of them are polished, meaning they look like mirrors. And what they really are is solar panels. Some are solar panels and some are just reflective. They keep the heat out and they keep the coolness in the building. And in places like India and Singapore and Hong Kong, where it gets really, really hot, it's just vital that you have this, and you're seeing it all around the world and every part of every country, everywhere around the world. Aerospace, silver-coated tiles to protect spacecraft from the sun. So there it's got the reverse application. Now you're in the atmosphere. It's an insulator because space is very, very cold, but yet the sun is very, very hot. So what helps protect spacecraft are these transparent layers of silver that reflect sunlight. And they do a great job of it. And none of that could be possible without silver. So we're building a big, huge case of demand, and we're just getting started. This will roll out for decade after decade for the next 3 decades is my best guess that it'll take for us to have automated cars and 5G around the world and electric vehicles and the Internet of Things. So you can bet in the future that the value of silver will appreciate. Now, consumable. Half of all silver mined is thrown away. And to just put it or quantify it for you, put it in perspective, there's 2 grams of silver per each keyboard. And I don't care where you're at, any landfill you want to go look at or pictures, you see keyboards because you're not allowed to throw them away in the trash. It's some places now, or you used to be able to throw them away in trash, and you see these landfills just littered with old cell phones, old electronics, old computers, old copying machines. Keyboards are everywhere, just to give you an idea of how much silver is in like one keyboard. So as they roll out 5G and all these devices are going to need upgraded, whether it's a phone, a computer, any kind of device. But here's a reflection of if you were to recycle 1 million cell phones, this is the approximate amount of precious metals, or at least 3 out of the 4, copper's not, 772 pounds of silver, 75 pounds of gold, 33 pounds of palladium. So you can see by that figure how much gold and silver actually goes into these electronic devices that we use. So it's a huge market, and I believe it will grow exponentially over the coming decade. And right now, and I'll get into this in depth, I mean, this is a call you don't want to miss next week. I can show you how to make a lot of money in gold and silver, but you got to know how to do it, you got to know when to do it, and you got to do it with the proper type products too, because not all gold and silver is created equal. Just know that. But there's certain, I believe in trends. I believe everything's cyclical. And right now is a beautiful entry point into silver. More so than gold, and I'll explain that all next week. So definitely tune in next week for the gold to silver ratio, how to buy, sell, and really when to buy gold and silver or vice versa. Because I can show you where the appreciation, and it's well documented, how to sell your silver and buy gold, and when you should buy gold and sell your silver and convert back and forth, because there's definitely a strategy behind gold and silver. They both essentially hedge and insure, but you might as well get your best bang for your buck and get the most absolute value or appreciation out of your gold and silver. So I'm going to show you a little trick next week on how you really can increase your holdings in strategic metals. So that'll be very interesting. So with that said, today's call, everything silver, we'll end it here. I just wanted to give you an overview of the demand of silver and what effect it's going to have, because all these electronic gadgets in this rare metal age are going to be highly valuable and appreciate quite nicely. And I think it should be part of everybody's diversification portfolio in becoming that global diversified entity. So that's the teaching for today. We'll have another one next week on silver, but we're going to get into some numbers. We're going to quantify it, and I'm going to show you the best ways that I've learned over the decades on gold and silver, how to get in and out and why. So with that said, this is Andy Morbitzer. Have a great day.